Good evening, YouTube. This is Kaylin Stern coming at you with my regular Sunday night dinner. And tonight I have a Canadian ration, one that I've had for a while. This is one of two that I got early in the year. I had found some on eBay that were sold by a seller who already had these in the US, so I didn't have to worry about anything being nipped. So what I have is a 2020, it says IMP 20. This represents the year it was packed. This is menu 17, Indian chicken. When I first saw this, I was definitely intrigued. And when it was still available, I went ahead and grabbed it. So the way these work, there's this little thing that looks like one end of a dog bone. Some people call it the dog bone. This tab. And then this has a zipper seal, so you can close this back up. It won't be as watertight as it was before I ripped that zip strip off, but it can still be water resistant. Espresso roast, not the 3-in-1. Haven't had this in a long time. That's going into my delicious mug. Lemon lime sports drink. There will be a second one in here. The Canadian peanut butter. Actually, that one is US made for Canada. Raspberry jam. That is good stuff. A Wonder Bar. I wish we could find those here in the US. There's a Canadian mint compressed towel. This is fruit cocktail. There's the beverage bag. And here are Canadian tortillas. Here's the other lemon lime sports drink, which I will not use. A chocolate shake mix. I don't think I've had this one. I've had the vanilla, but I have not had this one, so I will have to get another container to mix that in. And this is the Indian chicken. Usual white matchbook with white tip matches. Again, I have no idea what the tip color means. A packet of Tabasco. There's a ubiquitous Canadian paper towel. And there's the spork. Longer than the standard US emery spoon, but very similar in material and color. And the little Tic Tac packet with the 4 pieces in it. I'm going to put in here all the items I'm not going to use. I'm not going to use the beverage bag. I'm obviously not going to use the pressed towel. These rations do not come with creamer or sugar for the coffee, so I will just get that from my own kitchen. I will show you what this espresso roast looks like. It is a freeze-dried coffee. Since I need to go back into the kitchen to get something to put this chocolate drink, I'll call it a chocolate shake because there's a huge amount of powder in here. It is in a gusseted Ziploc bag, which will help for mixing. Go ahead and pour the lemon lime drink mix into my drinking jar. I don't see anyone in the chat yet, but I do have the chat pulled up on my tablet screen, so it'll be easier to see that because I have my phone mounted above my tray so you can see what's going on here. I'm going to go ahead and put this, my Indian chicken, into the hot water to start heating that up, and then I will be back with an additional cup to put the chocolate shake in, plus the hot water for my coffee and the creamer and sugar for that. I just poured the creamer and sugar into my coffee. I'm actually going to do the shake first. I'm shaking, trying to get the powder down below the top of the bag so that when I do open it, I don't have it going everywhere. Cliff is here, Pepper for the Ages is here, Spicy Tuna Rolls is here. Unfortunately, the zipper in the bag itself was not zipped closed after the powder was poured in. So that's going to make this very hard to close. I don't know how you can see that. I opened up the gusset on the bottom. I got my taller bottle. I poured a small amount of water in there. I will pour I'm going to set that off to the side. I still have a little bit of water left inside of this bottle in case it is needed. But I will set that off to the side. I want to let that shake actually sit for a bit. I still got powder all over the place. But I will give my drink a stir. The tortillas are off to the side. Carlos Perry is here. Thanks for dropping in. I have 2 additional IMPs that were sent to me after I got this one and the other one, which I reviewed some time back. This definitely does not look like the American lemon lime drink. Not that super bright, vibrant green. A tortilla pouch has that same type of wavy texture on the ends like the American packets do, so you could probably pick any one of these and just rip it across like that. And like the American tortillas, they put an oxygen absorber in there. In fact, these were packed by Sterling Foods down in Texas. So Sterling apparently contracts with the Canadian ration packer to supply the tortillas. So they're basically the same as the standard tortillas you get in the USMREs. Very susceptible to breakage. I'm going to go ahead and open up the fruit cocktail. That stubborn little piece of cherry that I'm trying to get out of there. The fruit is very dark, which could be a bit of a letdown. I'm going to open up this Wonder Bar. This one may have melted a tiny bit. As you can tell by that. But considering it was packed in 2020, it still doesn't look half bad. I'm reading what DeCarlos has been putting in. It really stinks that someone would try to deprive a good parent of his or her rights when there should have been no problems to report, especially if the other parent died. Now, one of these tortillas I'm going to use for the main, and the other one I will put the peanut butter and jam on. Cold War prepper in the house. Thanks for dropping in. Now this peanut butter and jam were also packed in the U.S. for the Canadian Ration packer. It's kind of like Homipsa will pack stuff for not only Spanish rations, but for other countries' rations. Yeah, Bridgeford has done stuff for Norwegian, for the British rations, as well as American. I'm going to call it good for that. It just says chocolate drink mix, but it is a chocolate shake. Carcam is a name I had not seen in here before. Welcome, thanks for dropping in. I'm still going to give this a bit of a stir, because these things are notorious for not mixing up all that well. I'll put that there in between my coffee and my lemon lime drink, and I will go back into the kitchen and get my Indian chicken. Canadian rations do not come with flameless ration heaters. They would be issued those separately in the field. Or they may do what I did and simply boil it. I just carried this from the kitchen into this, which is a dome lid from my cookware set, and I have a paper towel to dry it off. I like to shake the pouch before I open it to make sure the food is below the tear notch. This can open very easy. This is going to be very loose. I have the Indian chicken out. There are black beans. There's other veggies in there. It definitely smells like a curry. This is my peanut butter and jam sandwich. I'm actually going to put my Wonder Bar there, and I'll lay that on top of that for now. I suppose the tortillas were chosen maybe to kind of represent the idea of a naan bread. But I want to taste this straight up by itself. There is a good look at some of the chicken pieces. The chicken is tender. It's minimally processed, but it is a bit dry. Here's a look at everything that's in there. The flavor is kind of like a mild, maybe curry, maybe garam masala. I want to try bean on its own. The beans are very, very soft. As soft as the bell pepper. Would have been nice if they were a little bit firmer. But other than that, the flavor is decent. Because it's so loose, maybe putting it in the tortilla itself, it might get a little messy. That will definitely absorb some of the liquid. Oh, that's nice that we have someone who has also been in the military. I do not have anyone in my family who has been a Marine, but I have relatives who have been in the Air Force and the Army. Now this is the way I would do it. I would just dip the tortilla into the sauce and eat it that way. If there was some rice, this would be awesome over rice. That is just some of the syrup from the fruit cocktail. Gonna have a drink of my Canadian espresso. That's not bad coffee. Don't get that a lot these days. Most of the time you get the Nescafe Sweet and Creamy 3-in-1 coffee. Some people probably would have put the coffee into the chocolate shake and mixed that up, but because I have not had the Canadian chocolate shake yet, I wanted to try that on its own first. In fact, I will go ahead and take a drink of that now. That is not very sweet, which can be a good thing. You may not always want something like that as sweet as an American hot chocolate. but it just tastes like a chocolate shake, not like a meal replacement or a protein shake would. It's probably in there just to jack up the calories. Of course, here is the peanut butter and raspberry jam. For those that may not know, especially first-time viewers, I had a cousin on my dad's side who was in the Air Force, and she was one of very few women who took the test to work on the fighter jets at the place where she took the test. She scored higher than most of the guys. So then she spent all of her time in the Air Force at one air base. She never moved around all the time that she was in. She never got deployed out of the country, just to the Eglin Air Base. Is where she spent all of her time after she took that test to work on the jets. And so having done that, that would obviously lead to a civilian career in a similar field, working on commercial aircraft or privately owned planes. I don't know if she ever got to work on helicopters. But when she was younger, she was really drawn to engines and mechanics, so she worked on the family vehicles. But then in the Air Force, she got drawn towards the fighter jets, and she wanted to work on those, and she was able to do that. Got a multi-magnum in the house. Thanks for dropping in. And this is Canadian IMP menu 17, packed in 2020. Indian chicken. And the chicken itself is minimally processed, but it is a bit on the dry side. The beans, the black beans in here are very, very soft. Would have been nice to have had a little bit more firmness. But it is a basic garam masala type flavor, not a strong curry. Garam masala is one of those spice blends that can vary from region to region in India and surrounding countries. Just like in a Mexican cuisine, the mole blend can vary by region. So a mole from Oaxaca may not be the same as one from Jalisco. Tim Riley is here. Thanks for dropping in. But I'm glad I was able to get this one. I really like the flavor. So I'm definitely going to enjoy this. You're not all that late. I had to take a little extra time because I mixed up the chocolate shake that was in here. So one of the tortillas, I'm basically doing what someone would do if they had a naan bread or other flatbread. This is too loose of a sauce to try to actually put it in the tortilla and have it stick. We got the Canadian espresso roast. I added my own creamer and sugar to it because they are not supplied in these rations that don't have the pre-mixed 3-in-1 coffees. Curious Pete is here. Thanks for dropping in. No, this is Indian chicken. So this is packed in 2020. The beans, the black beans probably make it look like a chili. But there's chicken, there's bell peppers. There's some other veggies in here. There's garam masala type seasoning in here. The chicken's a bit on the dry side and all the veggies and the beans are mushy, but I'm really liking the flavor. Burger butter here. Got lemon lime in your drinking jar. This tortilla has peanut butter and blackberry jam. This here is a Wonder Bar, but the one end took a bit of heat stress. But I'm still going to enjoy that Wonder Bar because I love those things. Now, there are some times when you want soft beans, like if you're making a fool, which is partially pureed or blended fava beans, and you put some other ingredients like spices and tomatoes, you want some of the favas blended up to the consistency of refried beans, where others you want a little bit more texture, but you want it in a bit of a looser consistency, not really thick like refried beans unless you have super loose refried beans, which I have had in a couple of restaurants that I thought they could have done a better job with making it thicker instead of having a pureed bean soup on a plate. Yeah, hummus is usually pretty smooth unless you get a hummus that has additional ingredients added, like bits of roasted tomato or bell pepper, or maybe some chickpea chunks that didn't get completely blended, or whole sesame seeds or something like that. And this tortilla has the jam and the peanut butter in it. This is a chocolate shake, just a basic chocolate shake. I've had the vanilla shake before from Canadian Rations. In fact, I have one or two of those in my stash, but I had not had the chocolate one. So the next time I get one of those, I have two more IMPs. If I happen to get a chocolate shake, I may blend the coffee with the shake powder just for something a little different. I think the lemon lime drink is a good pairing with this. It's not something overly sweet. Although the American lemon lime drink is my favorite of the US MRE drinks, I'll take the Canadian one over that. But as I said earlier, this, if there was some rice, this would be great on top of rice. I suppose if I wanted, I could have skipped the peanut butter and the jam altogether and used both tortillas to dip in this, but I had no idea how loose the sauce would be. But I'm still gonna eat it all anyway. Now, for those who were not here last week, the week before, I did not stream because I was at Lake Icaria, and no, I did not catch any fish, even though I tried. And I did not go to the memorial bench that has my dad's name on it. I should have, I just didn't do it. The first 3 days, the day that we got there, July 27th, and then the next 2 days after were hot and extremely humid, and the flies are just pestering us like crazy. But the remaining time we spent, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we came back on August 1st. The weather was a lot cooler, but then we started getting the wildfire smoke, and the day we came back, Des Moines had high air quality, high level air pollution alerts. And it just was not pleasant coming back into the city. But it has gotten a lot better. We haven't had any bad air days for a while. My area didn't get a whole lot of rain overnight. I didn't catch any in the catch trays that I got underneath my plants on my deck. But I still have plenty of water left from what I previously was able to capture to water my plants with, so I don't have to use tap water. Speaking of Arizona, my one remaining aunt, who's still alive, she was living in Arizona, but she recently came back to Iowa. So she sold the house she was living in there in Arizona and bought a place in a different town than where she grew up or spent most of her life up until a few years after she retired from the Corning Hospital, where she was the head dietitian. But she wanted to be closer to other relatives. So that's why she decided to come back to Iowa. Who knows, maybe the super high heat was getting too much. Or maybe she didn't want to deal with potential wildfire risk. My cursor in the house. Indian chicken on the tray. Oh, Mike, I'm not old enough for that one. I've heard some mixed things about Italian rations. The food is in cans for the most part. And I guess some of them have said that the flavor is a bit bland. And the breakfast box is pretty much your accessories and some candies. But it would be interesting to get a hold of one to try it out for myself. But finding that is going to be a challenge. And the coffee in my delicious cup is a Canadian espresso roast, not the 3-in-1. And I actually like that espresso roast. Got the blackberry jam and the peanut butter in one tortilla. The other tortilla I dipped into the sauce. Fruit cocktail is definitely dark. There's CR. Haven't seen you in here in a minute. I'm eating some of your country's food, CR. This is packed in 2020. The Wonder Bar has seen a bit of heat, as you can tell by the caramel sticking out. It's a bit misshapen. But that is still a treat. We don't have those down here. Yeah, as I said, I'm not going to edit that out. I make an oops, I leave it in. I don't care. Only editing I ever do is splicing segments together. This Indian chicken, although it's quite soft and the chicken is a bit dry, the flavor is there and I'm still enjoying it. Yeah, my fishing at the lake was not all that great. Most of the time, whoever caught a fish, it was too small to keep, but too big to use as bait. We had one walleye that was a keeper, and it got cooked up along with steaks, and then we all just had a small bite of that walleye. So at least we got to taste it. Wow, I hope she is having a good time up there. I would like to go to Canada, but travel is just a bit of a problem. Before I did go to the lake, I finally got my expired Iowa ID replaced. It expired last December. I just didn't renew it. And when I originally had to schedule an appointment. They put it on July 30. And I said, no, I'm going to be out of town. I'm going to be on vacation. Can I get another time? And so they squeezed me in as an emergency appointment instead of waiting till after I got back. But they said it would take 30 days for it to come in the mail. It came in a week. So they must not have had all that many to process that day. Because when I was in there for my appointment, there are not a huge number of people waiting to get theirs done. And because it's a non-driver ID, obviously I didn't have to do any tests or say what restrictions I need to have or anything like that. So it is the real ID. Although it still looks fake to me, but you know, it is what it is. This is a chocolate shake. It's not bad. It's not overly sweet. The chocolate flavor might be a bit weak. I don't know if I put too much water in there. As I got it pretty much to the line, but then again, it could just be a lightly flavored shake mix. But it's not a protein shake. You don't have that protein concentrate taste in there. Some people may mix their coffee with the shake powder. Who knows, maybe I'll try that if I ever get another IMP with a chocolate shake in it. Thanks for dropping in, Mike. But there are others who have done that with mixing the shake powders with the coffee and either made it as a hot drink or a cold drink. The fruit cocktail, I got gypped on the cherry. A couple of really tiny cherry bits. The fruit is very, very soft. It's dark. Probably looks like it's 10 years old, but it still tastes fine. I will definitely finish that off. But this Indian chicken is definitely far above anything that you'll get in an American MRE. There's a Tabasco packet in the bag, but I'm not using it because to me Tabasco is just not the right flavor for it. If there was an Indian spice like the sambal, if I had the sambal from a British ration out here, I would put that in. Thanks for dropping in, John. Hope to see you another time. Yeah, I think the sambal, for the little bit that you get in the packet, it packs a lot of punch. And I think it would be perfect in here. Bring up the heat, but still give the flavor. I would definitely do that instead of the Tabasco. If I ever get this Maine again, I will definitely be getting my packet of sambal and throwing it in there. Could have used a third tortilla. But, or the American flatbread would be a good thing to dip in here. I would like to be able to find sambal here. I never looked online to see if it can be ordered. But yeah, that sambal is some darn good stuff. I like sriracha, and we used a lot of it at the mosque. In fact, we still have a bunch of bottles of it stashed away. That one might be a little too sweet for this, so I would not use the sriracha. But yeah, the sambal, I would definitely be throwing that in here. The amount of chicken in here is good. I did like the amount of chicken. And thanks for dropping in, Lee. Yeah, Cold War Prepper does his streams at 9 p.m. Eastern. That's 8 Central on Mondays. And then he pops up some on certain Thursdays as well. But sometimes he has been having issues with getting his streams off. Last week I had an issue getting mine started. Although my tablet was connecting so I could have my chat up, my phone was dropping connection. But after a few tries I finally did get it going, so that's why that one started a bit late. But I had no issues with getting it going this time. It was not a weather thing, it was just some system burp, I guess. Oh, that, yeah, if it's too sweet, I probably would not want this on here. I mean, garam masala, some blends can be a bit sweet. But whatever was used in this one, I like it. So for something that's been sitting in a retort pouch since 2020, it's still a winner. Lemon lime, nice citrusy type drink. I like that with this. A tea would have been good. But the coffee is perfectly fine. The chocolate shake was a bit unexpected, but nevertheless a treat. I'm sure out in the field just having any chocolate would be a morale booster. This is a Wonder Bar. It's kind of like a Butterfinger, but slightly different as far as what's inside the chocolate with the caramel. We need to be able to get these here in the US. Those are good. Same with the coffee crisp bars. Yeah, this is not the Nescafe Sweet and Creamy. This is the straight up espresso roast. And then I added my own creamer and sugar to it. So it's a good strong coffee. Definitely something you would want when you need a morning jolt. That would be good. But this chocolate shake is just a straight up not a protein shake, just your standard. It's not even like a meal replacement shake. It's just a chocolate shake, but I suppose you could make it into a hot cocoa if you wanted. That might be something worth trying. Next time I get another Canadian chocolate shake, I might make it hot. See how that does. A couple of things that I did not expect to find in here, I'm still happy with. All the unused items will get stashed away. I'm using my titanium spork instead of the plastic one that was in the ration bag. That one will get added to my bag of plastic forks and sporks. The Canadian paper towel will get stashed away. I got a bag that has several of those in there. The compressed towels, or some people call them the Canadian mints, It has a maple leaf impressed onto it, which is kind of a neat touch. I have a bag with those. I have a bag with all my matchbooks. Even the Tic Tacs I save because that is a type of candy that I do store for long term. It does not have a low milk point like chocolate would. It's more of a solid candy. You know, it doesn't have the same ingredients like Jolly Ranchers or the Starlight Mints or the butterscotch candies or anything like that. They have a lower melt point than something like Tic Tacs or the white Lifesavers. So that's why I save all those Tic Tacs. And when I go to the Transit Rider Advisory Committee meetings, if they put some Lifesavers or occasionally some gum packets or even those little Tic Tac packets with 4 in them like you get out of a Canadian ration, I take those home and I stash them. Because I figure one day I may either need something like that as a personal morale booster, or I could give that to someone else as a bit of a pick-me-up, or as a barter item or something like that. Of course, the beverage bags, I always save those. I use them to put small items in, to organize, or just to keep them dry. In fact, those Taster's Choice coffee sticks that I showed in my shopping haul, I took those out of the boxes and I put them into an American beverage bag, and all of those fit in there. So that's what I will do with those beverage bags. Some of them anyway. Some will be left empty. Just in case I might need one of those to actually mix a drink in, but I would prefer to do that in a bottle. There's something like this, or a smaller size, or whatever I happen to have on me at the time. There's one coffee brand that I have found locally called Black and Bold. I've even seen it in cans as a cold brew. It's just straight up coffee, no creamer, no sugar, no sweetener. And I have a bag of the beans. I got a hold of those several months ago. So the next thing that I want to find is a manual coffee grinder. I may not score one like the way I did that flour sifter that someone had placed in the laundry room of the building, where people place items that they no longer want but don't want to throw into the dumpster. That electric percolator, that does work. I did a water test, and it actually boils the water instead of just heating it up to, say, like a 140 or 160 or whatever most other coffee makers, like the one that I use daily, that does not boil the water. It just heats it enough so it does produce steam, but it doesn't boil the water like a percolator does. But I filled that thing full and it worked fine. There's no issues with the cord. That probably eats as many watts as my other coffee maker uses, maybe more. I should plug my kilowatt meter into the wall and then run it and see how many watts it draws. Probably more than my Opus 600 power station can handle. Yeah, I have some coffee stored, but ground coffee does not last as long, or the regular grind apparently does not last as long as the instant or the whole bean. I think I even have one bag of unroasted coffee beans, so they would look green, or maybe a light tan. My mom actually used to get raw coffee beans and run them through an air popcorn popper. But I'll tell you, when you do that, the whole house will smell like that for days. So I would not recommend doing that if you need to watch your scent for OPSEC. If I was out in the middle of the boonies, and I had a way to roast those beans, yeah. But if I had to control my my odors in here during an SHTF situation, I would not be wasting a lot of fuel or energy to even roast enough coffee beans to grind for a cup. Waffles is here. Thanks for dropping in. That's okay. I just finished off the Indian chicken. Actually, I just read the ingredients. What I thought was beans was actually black currants. No wonder why they were soft and didn't taste like a bean. It was actually black currants. Of course, it also said raisins, but a currant is not the same as a raisin, but yeah. I probably should have read the ingredients more, but it doesn't say the specific spices. It does have ginger, and many garam masala blends do have ginger. There is lemon juice powder in here. There's coconut. And a milk ingredient. There's butter in here. Of course, a lot of oils as well. But for a shelf-stable Indian dish, not bad at all. Ooh, veggie breakfast casserole? That must be a new menu because I had never heard of that before. This one was packed in 2020. That's what that's 20 back here beside the letters IMP. Menu 17. Yeah, so yours would definitely be newer than this one. But I would definitely recommend this Indian chicken. Now that one, waffles, does intrigue me. I have two more IMPs that I got after I got this one, and another one that I bought at the same time. So I will be getting into those later on. So next week I will go back to American rations. I have a few halal ones. I have some standard MREs, both 2022 pack and 2024 pack. Plus I have that civilian MRE Star 24-hour ration. So I'll be getting into that. I have an XMRE blue line. That one is labeled as a first responder oriented ration. So that would have a different slightly different makeup than their regular XMREs. I can't find the halal or kosher XMRE cases available anymore. I don't know if they're not producing them or they're out of stock of the components used to put them together, or what's up with that. The site really doesn't say what's going on with those. I have had some XMRE menus before, some of the halal ones, just as single, not out of a whole case. But this blue line one that I have, it'll be my first time getting into one of those. Yeah, like others, it would depend on the menu itself. Yeah, it's like MRE Star. Some of the items are hits, some are misses. Yeah, you'll find that with all kinds of military and civilian rations. Some will be good, others not so much. But getting into those and trying them is the only way you find out whether you like them or not. Yeah, the chicken chunks, anytime I get one of those that just has the chicken chunks, I see no sense in reviewing it. What I ended up doing was taking those chicken chunks and putting them into something else. See, like a ramen, or maybe adding it to a soup, or putting it with some rice and other stuff. That's what I end up doing with the chicken chunks. I mean, that's about as boring as you can get. They may stick some condiments in there, but if I was a soldier in the field and I was given that one, I would think of that as a letdown. I like what Vesti Foods does with the British rations. Although, from what I've heard from some people over there, not very many soldiers actually fill out those surveys. Even with the incentive of a prize draw, like say maybe a couple £100 or whatever it was, that they're just not getting enough of a cross section of the military to get a sense of what is liked, what is not. But if that's done, and more people fill out those surveys, and then the people who develop the rations actually take that feedback and use it to make appropriate changes, yet still make it within the nutritional requirements, that can't be a bad thing. Yeah, the tuna packet, that's probably about the next least interesting one. But at least with, sometimes you only get the plain tuna, sometimes you get the lemon pepper. If they vary the flavor of that might make it a little bit more interesting, but to have that tuna. And then another big problem that we're seeing with the more recent production is lack of, why are they not putting coffee in the accessory pack, and why do some amories only have a shake powder instead of your standard drink mix like that? Of course, those could use an improvement too. Taking the coffee out of the MREs was a bad move. Yeah, sure. If you get one that has coffee in it, you don't have to drink the coffee. You can save that for another time. You could, say, double up on the coffee in the morning for your breakfast, or double up on it with your lunch. But taking it out altogether, I'm not cool with that. And the halal MREs, no hot drink of any kind, not even a cocoa mix or either a tea bag or an instant tea. I don't get that, because there's nothing in Islamic dietary guidelines that say you cannot have a hot drink with your meal. A lot of times when you have a meal with Muslims, there's either coffee or tea being served even on hot days, because Some like their coffee and some like their tea. So why not have that in the halal MREs? I don't get that. The companies that did and now do the kosher ones, you get a hot drink option. Mile Meals had coffee and cocoa mix. La Brute does a cocoa mix. In addition to the cold drink powder. It may not change from menu to menu, but at least that is in there. So why not do that? You get a halal ration from another company, another country. You may get coffee in it, although that Spanish B2 didn't have coffee in it, but yeah, Home Ipsa could do something about that. But with British and French halal rations, you get coffee and or tea and or cocoa mix, or all three. Yep. And speaking of MREs, I'm still looking to find a ratatouille. I know that one has been discontinued for several years, but that is one menu that I have not gotten hold of and want to, so or I end up sourcing that. I suppose I'll find that out another day. I'm curious if Canada has halal certified rations. I know some of the eBay listings I've seen said for use, like they're used in Canada. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if La Brute does kosher certified rations for the Canadian military, or what they do at all for any of their personnel who follow kosher or halal dietary rules. I'm curious about that. Thanks for dropping in, Dave. Speaking of Burger Butt, hopefully they will be back at doing videos, especially if LJ is available to join them. It is August, so depending on your location, school may be starting up fairly soon. Here in Iowa, we have our state fair, and schools do not start until after the state fair ends. Again, it has to be after a specific date, like August 23rd or something like that. But school cannot start until after the state fair ends. Thanks for dropping in, Waffles. And speaking of the state fair, there is an event called the Celebrity Steer Show. and our governor has participated in it. Some radio personalities that participate in it, other locally known people participate in it. And this year, not only is the Iowa State Ag Secretary participating, but the federal Ag Secretary has decided that she has to get in on the fun. And so it is kind of a friendly competition. And they show steers who have been trained over a longer period of time to be in the show ring. And there are sponsors and others who donate money to not only put it on, but it is a fundraiser for a local Ronald McDonald House. For those who are not familiar with that, Ronald McDonald House affiliates with hospitals to house families of children who have to spend a lot of time in the hospital for whatever serious illness or maybe accident, and they need some extensive treatment for a longer period of time. The family of that child can stay in the Ronald McDonald House free of charge, supplies provided, so food, cleaning, hygiene products, things like that, aside from what the family brings. But all that stuff is provided for the for the families that stay there. That way they don't have to travel back and forth, especially if they have to come from a longer distance. So they can be with the patient for a longer amount of time than otherwise if they didn't have a place like that to go to. So it's a neat thing that they do that. So that will actually take place this coming Tuesday. So I will hear about that on the local radio station probably Wednesday morning. Let's see which celebrity and his or her steer won the bragging rights. So we have unique things like that here at the Iowa State Fair that it draws people from all over the world. In fact, this morning I heard that there were reporters from Canada and Switzerland who came specifically to do stories about the Iowa State Fair. That's okay. You take off when you need to. I'll be finishing off my 3 drinks in my Wonder Bar. I haven't gone to the state fair in a number of years. At this time of the year, I'm usually focusing on the family trip to Lake Icaria, and then anything that might be happening at the mosque. And of course, the next place I will be going next month will be the White Eagle Multicultural Powwow, which takes place the third weekend of September. So in November, I will have been on the organizing committee for a year. But I've been volunteering doing the kids' crafts for several years before that. So that's what I will be doing. I have collected supplies, and others have been collecting supplies. And we've had a Mexican group come up a couple years ago and do some dancing from their tradition. I can't remember if they're Aztec or Mayan. I would have to dig through the history of that. But I would love to see some groups from Canada come down. We've had a few groups from surrounding states do performances. Plus we have people who may not be of a particular ethnic group, but they are practicing something like the taiko drummers, the Japanese giant drums. And we have a kung fu group that does their demonstrations of different styles with and without weapons. And we have some people who do the Hawaiian hula. We have had some African groups and some belly dancers. And we usually get a few food trucks. I invited a local halal food truck owner. So I don't know if he will be able to do it or not. I gave him the application. He seemed intrigued, interested, and he said he might see if his calendar is free that weekend. Plus we have crafters who set up their booths. Got story times. A couple of dances that are specific for kids to do. It's always fun watching them. But because I'm with the kids doing the crafts, I don't get a whole lot of time to watch much of anything else. But I will shoot some video when I can. And I'll grab some pictures that I usually post up on Facebook. I'll probably, I should do community posts here on YouTube as well of some of the pictures that I may be able to get. But last year we had some weather snafus with rain messing with some of the canopies. So we couldn't get the first ceremony going until we got everything cleared up, put back together, you know, after the rain had stopped. as it was pretty windy. But we still managed to get it off close to on time. A whole bunch of us had just grabbed towels or whatever we could find to dry off the performance arena. It's just a big board with a circle painted on it, so a whole bunch of us were just trying to get that dried off. But we got that done. So that is what I will be doing in September, and I camp there at Jester Park. And the last couple of years I've been sleeping in one of the teepees that is also used to store the craft supplies at night. Because I do not have a summer tent. I have a winter tent, but I don't have a summer one. And there are not any trees that are spaced apart in the camping area where I could hang a hammock, so the teepee it is. Unfortunately, we did not have a squeegee. But we had a whole bunch of towels. And several of us doing it together, we got it done. But it's a great thing that the couple that started it this year would have been the 27th year had we been able to do it in 2020. Of course, the big nasty got on the way of that. So last year was the 25th White Eagle Powwow, and that started after their son, who was a lineman working on power poles. There was a hawk that had got itself caught up in it in the top of a power pole, and so he went up there, since he happened to be working in that area. He went up there to try to get that hawk off, but the bird flinched and its wings tapped on two live parts, and it basically completed a circuit, and both he and the hawk were instantly fried. But what he was about in his young life was trying to get non-Indigenous people to not only respect Indigenous people and their culture, but just to respect them as human beings. You know, learn from each other, you know, get to know each other. But that is what he strived to do in his young life, even with just by working on power poles. You know, having that good relationship with the others in his group that he regularly worked with. and for the company that he worked for. So his parents decided that the best way that they could remember their son and what he was about was to hold an event that would bring people that represent different cultures together, to share with each other and with attending public. And being that I am I think there's only one other non-Indigenous person on the organizing committee. So by us joining, we're helping with that effort. But to me, it's just something enjoyable to do, something worthwhile to do. And I just enjoy doing it. I have a great time with these people. I look forward to it every year. And I can't wait to get to the park next month, help us set up, and get the craft thing going on. And on the Sunday of that weekend, I do not stream because I have no idea what time my driver will bring me back into Des Moines. And because we start things down, putting things away after it ends, that takes some time, and then others go back the following Monday to take down the larger canopies and the teepees and pack up all the chairs, things like that, to get them put back into storage. That takes some doing. And Jester Park, they give us a discount rate for the powwow. They give us a really large space to do it in. Now we got a couple of guys who provide security for us. And we get a little bit of media coverage, not too much, but we do get some. But it's a lot of word of mouth. Just people who have gone to it in the past talking it up, and then us committee members, we're spreading the word. So we will be blasting social media and sending press releases to local news outlets about it. I posted on the Des Moines Patch and I just tell people about it. And then a local photographer here, Roger Routh, who works for a local TV station here, he comes out, shoots pictures and video, and he will put that up on his YouTube channel as well as on Facebook. He also is a nature photographer. He loves bird watching, looking for different birds, to take pictures of. When he travels to other states, he looks for birds. He just has this thing for birds. But he comes out, shoots video, takes pictures. There may be some others who do the same. But thanks for dropping in, Tim. I'm probably going to go ahead and close this out pretty soon anyway. I've eaten everything that I'm going to eat. Again, I recommend this menu. I don't know if it is still menu 17 in the current IMP lineup. And this one was packed in 2020. If you can find it, go ahead and go after it. You'll be glad you did. So next week it'll definitely be an American ration. Which one it is, I don't know yet. And if you see any little bit of fuzz moving around to my left, Pumpkin is out here moving around. She's currently under my chair, but you may have seen her tail. So I'm giving her the back of her neck a rub. I will decide before next Sunday what I'm going to pull out of the old ration box. It could be a halal emery, it could be one of my other ones. But I'll figure that out for next weekend. Again, I want to thank you all for coming out tonight, especially anyone who has never been in here before. I do this every Sunday at 7 p.m. U.S. Central Time. That's 8 Eastern. Could be 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning sometime in Europe, or later on the other side of the planet. Yeah, there's Pumpkin's tail. Yeah, move that. You saw her rump. But that will do for tonight. Thanks for watching, and catch you on the flip side.